Oh, it's there.
8 of us are present. Sue, isn't there?
What, Danny?
8 are present, aren't they?
No, 10. We've got 10 now.
Oh, it's a bloody iPad screen.
We're now live on YouTube, by the way.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Broadland District Planning Committee on Wednesday, the 17th of December, our virtual meeting. Thank you to all our officers who enable these virtual planning meetings to progress. Hopefully everything will run smoothly, but please be patient if we should find a few gremlins in the works. We will endeavour to resolve any problems as quickly as possible. Our meeting today will be recorded and the meeting will be live streamed for public viewing on YouTube. The recording of this meeting will also be available on the Broadland District Council website. You should be aware any comments made in this meeting will be recorded indefinitely. Please can I ask everyone in attendance to ensure that when your microphones are muted, that you should try to keep the background noise to a minimum. Unmuted, apologies. That you should keep your background noise to a minimum. Background noise can be very distracting from the discussion and information being relayed throughout the meeting. My name is Councillor Sue Lawn, Chairman of the Planning Committee. I will now ask our committee officer to proceed to a roll call for other members of our planning committee. Thank you, Officer Matthews.
Sorry, Chairman, rookie error. Talking
okay.
while muted. Sorry, Councillor Adams.
Here, I don't know whether you need me to declare I've got no declarations of interest.
Chairman, you happy I do declarations at the same time?
Yeah.
Yes, we can do that.
Yep, thank you. So that's
okay, right. Cheers.
Present and no declarations. Councillor Brennan.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Fisher.
Present, no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Catchpole. Sorry, I missed you out there.
Present, no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Folger, I don't think is with us at the moment, Chairman, so we'll come back to him in a moment. Councillor Karimi Guvenlu.
Present. I just wanted to mention I was at the Parish Council meeting with a discussion on 224 Fakenham Road, but we didn't take part in any discussions regarding the application.
Thank you. Councillor Lawn.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Thank you. Councillor Prutton.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Riley.
Present, no declarations.
And Councillor Ward.
Present, declaration in regard to the Royal Oak. I'm a member of Sproston Town Council and was present when it was discussed, but I did not express an opinion and did not take part in the vote.
Thank you very much.
I just need to amend mine then slightly because I was also present at 224 Fakenham Road when it was discussed. But again, I haven't expressed any opinion on it one way or the other.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Officer Matthews. Also present with me today are Officers Helen Meller, Assistant Director of Planning for Broadland and South Norfolk District Councils, Matthew Rook, Central Area Team Manager for Broadland and South Norfolk, and our presenting officer today. Bless you. Leah Arthurton from Democratic Services, who will be our host for today, and Don Matthews from Democratic Services will take and prepare the minutes of our meeting. Thank you, officers. All members of the committee have received in advance paper copies of the agenda, presentation slides and public written submission for the applications we will be considering today. At various points throughout the meeting, for example, in relation to questions and comments, I will do a roll call if necessary, member to member, in alphabetical order, requesting the committee's members' input. Today, I'm pleased to confirm that we will have public speaking for this planning meeting. Only members of the public who have registered to speak in accordance with the council scheme of public speaking will be able to address the committee. The time allocated is a maximum of 5 minutes per speaker per parish council. Please be aware there is no provision for members of the public to circulate documents or photographs at this meeting. The order of our meeting today will be as follows. The planning officer will present the key points for the application to the committee for their consideration. This will be followed by questions to the presenting officer from members of the committee in relation to the presentation. Public speakers will then be invited to address the committee. This again will be followed by questions to the public speakers from members of the committee. And I must emphasise these questions will only be to clarify something the speaker has said and not for the speaker to put further points across. The order of public speaking is parish town council first, followed by objectors, and finally supporters, i.e. the applicant or the agent. Council members who are not members of this committee would then be invited for the allocated time of a maximum of 5 minutes for each speaker. This again will be followed by questions from members of the committee. The committee will then discuss and determine the application with the proposer and seconder for each of the applications we will consider today. Members will give their vote to the proposal by roll call, and our committee officer will relay the results of their votes to the meeting. So do we have any questions before we start? Okay, thank you. Thank you. We will now move on to our agenda. And at this point for our virtual meeting, I'd like to bring items, apologies, we just need to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting and any matters arising. So we've already done the declarations of interest. So we will now do agenda items number 3 and number 4.
Sorry, Chairman, could I just record officially? We've got a couple of apologies as well today.
Yes, sorry.
Just to item 2 before you move on to the minutes. We've got apologies from Councillor Beadle, and Councillor Catchpole is a substitute, and we have apologies from Councillor Moncur.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
And now we'll go to items 3 and 4.
So would you like me to do that by way of a roll
Yes.
call, Chairman, for the minutes?
Yes, please.
If members
Yes,
could
please.
confirm they're happy with the minutes and indicate if they have any matters arising. So that's Councillor Adams.
Happy with the minutes, no matters arising.
Councillor Brennan.
Happy with the minutes, no matters arising.
Councillor Catchpole.
I wasn't
You weren't
present.
there, sorry. Councillor Fisher.
I wasn't present at the last meeting either.
Thank you. Councillor Karimi Guvenlu. Can you unmute Councillor Karimi? Thank you.
Sorry, don't usually do that. Happy with the minutes, no matters arising.
Thank you. Councillor Lawn.
Happy with the minutes and no matters arising.
Thank you. Councillor Pretton.
Content, no matters arising.
Thank you. Councillor Riley.
Yes, happy with the minutes.
And Councillor Ward.
Happy with the minutes, no matters arising.
Thank you. That concludes those 2 items, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. We will now move on to our agenda item number 5 and the schedule of applications. And if I can just advise everybody that as we've been requested to by a member of the public, that we should bring item number 2 forward, and we will deal with application number 2 first, and then we'll move on to application 1 secondly. Okay, so we will now move on to application number 2, 2020-1930. And if I could just advise everybody before we move on to the presentation for public information, our officer will be sharing the screen throughout the presentation this morning. Members will also have this presentation information via hard copies. Committee members, please ensure that you do not leave your screen at any time during the presentation, public speaking, or discussion of an application. If you should need to leave for any reason, please give the reason for leaving to the host through the chat, and you will need to understand that you could be in a situation where you're unable to vote on the application under discussion at the time of your absence. Please be advised if a member should lose connection for a period of time, the meeting will be adjourned until the member reconnects. Please note, a member will be given a period of 5 minutes to reconnect before the meeting will resume, and if the member has not reconnected in the timescale allowed, he or she will not have a vote on the application under consideration at the time of losing connection. Members, can I advise you that on conclusion of the presentation, I will ask through a roll call, if necessary, if you have any questions in relation to the presentation. Could I please request that if you should have any further questions or comments after I've asked you in a roll call, would you please address these questions through chat, and our host Lee will bring it to my attention. We will now proceed to the presentation. Thank you, Officer Rook.
Good morning, everybody. I will just start to share my screen for this item. Let me get it in front of me, sorry. Oh, there it is. So we're going to take item number 2 first, which is 224 Fakenham Road, Taverham. This is an application, an outline application for the demolition of the existing dwelling and the erection of 2 dwellings. Just take you through the slides. Application site identified in yellow here. It's this rectangular plot. That's number 224 in the center of your site here. Neighbouring properties to the side. So we have number 226A Fakenham Road and number 226 here. They are both accessed from a shared vehicular access at this point. The application site is accessed from a point along this side of the property. And then neighbours to the other side of 22A and 222A, 222A Fakenham Road and 222 Fakenham Road here. And then also referenced within the report to properties to the rear at Garden Croft. They're the properties at Garden Croft there. Numbers, let me get the slide in front of me, numbers 32 and 36 are here. The other thing just to draw reference to on this slide is the sort of the linear pattern of development, particularly for these properties. But beyond that, we've got a care home here, 2 acres care home, which extends right the way back to this furthest part of the site here. And then there are some residential properties here which front Fakenham Road. This one here has a property behind it which is accessed from Haverscroft Close. And then this property here has a driveway running down the side, and that's got a neighbouring property to the rear, another one to the rear. And I think there's a plot in there that is under construction at the moment, access down here. So wanted just to draw members' attention that although this is linear, within the surroundings, there are other properties located in the area that have been subdivided and have properties to the rear of them. On to the next slide. So that's just the OS plan. So you just see the context of the site. Currently the application site has driveway down the side here, turning area to the front, side access down to a sort of garage building at the rear of the site, a relatively large plot running to the rear of the property. This is plan just identifies some of the things I've spoken about the orientation of the neighbouring properties. And you can see the relationship to those. This is a detached house. That's a chalet. Then these are detached houses to the rear. I do have photographs of that I'll be able to show you as part of the visual presentation. So now going down into further detail, we can see the outline of the existing property, which is a chalet and the garage, which I mentioned here. This is the driveway that runs down the side of the property, but within the front garden of both the neighbouring properties at number 222A and 226A are mature oak trees, which are subject to a tree preservation order. And you can see that those trees have been plotted on this plan here. The canopy spread, root protection area of those trees are indicated with the dashed lines. And what this plan is identifying, and you'll see it within the report, it refers to a sort of a parameter plan. Because this is an outline application with all matters reserved, officers wanted to have an understanding as to where the development or the extent of development would be taking place. And this plan identifies that the hatched area is the area in which the 2 dwellings would be located. So by that, we can see that they are clear of the nearest tree and T5, but also they are running to the rear of the neighbouring properties, but running along the sort of the rear of the existing garage building. It's not looking to extend further to the rear or come into this sort of front garden of the property. It's maintaining that kind of pattern, that sort of linear pattern between the neighbouring properties. And that's something I'll be referring to when we talk about the assessment of the application. That's the parameter plan. The parameter of the development is limited to that area that's shown hatched on your plan there. That just shows it again, which is with the ground protection. So it's intended that this would be the driveway serving the site, and that would be covered by ground protection, just to ensure that any construction vehicles, anything in relation to the development of the site aren't damaging those tree roots, and that also we've got a line of protective fencing. So protective fencing would run around that tree canopy just to ensure that we're not developing or any kind of storage beneath the canopy of T5, the big oak there. Photographs of the site. So take you first to this central one. So this is what I mentioned about. So this is at the entrance to the site, with a sort of at the entrance from Fakenham Road, driveway running down the right-hand side of the plot. Chalet property, you can see here, with a large sort of front garden. These are the oak trees on both sides that I mentioned about. Then go into the left-hand side photo here. So this is the properties to the left of the application site. Beyond this fence here are these properties. Just make out a detached house here and another detached house there. So that's numbers 226A and 226, which achieve access via a shared driveway at this point. 226A goes that way and 226 obviously comes in here. And then on the other side of the property, on the other side of this hedge, we've then got the neighbouring properties in here at numbers 22A and 222 Fakenham Road, which are chalet properties, all retain that sort of open frontage of the site. So that's a characteristic of these particular properties, and that parameter plan would allow that to be retained. So now going into the back of the site, so this is the view from the rear of number 224, looking back towards the houses at Garden Croft at numbers 36 and 32. You can see there is an amount of vegetation which sort of protects some of the first floor windows of those properties. This one here is number 34, which is set further back and has got a couple of small first floor windows in that position there, but it's got a long rear garden and gives you that context. This is the garage building that I mentioned earlier. So that parameter plan will be running along the rear of that garage. So we're not looking to extend into development into this area of the property. It would be limited to the rear of that garage building. And then just looking back, you can see that the existing property at 224 has got this dormer window at the back, which allows sort of first floor accommodation up in the roof space. But the neighbouring property here, 226A, is detached house. You can see the height difference between that and the existing property. And then the height of the chalet at 222A, again, is taller than the application property. Some views just from within the site itself. So this is just within the back gardens of the application property. That's the garage again, and the rear wall of the application property. Just showing the context of that gable at the neighbouring property at 226A. No first floor windows in that gable. And this is the access down between the side of the application property and the boundary to 226A. And that's just the view from the front. You can see it's fairly well screened at the front there with existing vegetation. Then some views the other way. Again, looking from the front of the property back towards number 222A. The chalet and the height of the chalet of that particular property. There is a first floor window on that part of the property. This view here just shows the context of currently access down the side of the property there between the respective dwellings from the front, and then from the rear that same access is visible there. Then some views. This is that T5, the large mature oak tree that I showed you on the parameter plan. That is within the neighbouring property, but obviously the influence of that tree with its roots and its canopy are extending into the application site. Officers consider that the tree protection details identify the area around the tree that would be outside of that parameter plan. And then just another view from the front of the site shows these trees. Obviously more recently, when the trees are not in leaf, you can perhaps see the definition of the trees a little bit better, T5, and the other trees on the property at number 226A, and the oak tree at number 222A on the other side of the property there. And that's just a view from the sort of front door looking out towards Fakenham Road. So you can see it's got quite open frontage at the moment, and the intention is to retain that. And the last slide. So if I leave you on that slide, I'll just go to the summary of the report. Firstly, a correction to the reason for reporting the application. This application is being reported to committee because the applicant is a close relative of an employee of the council, not a member of the council as set out in the report. Apologies for that. The application seeks outline approval with all matters reserved for the demolition of the existing property and the erection of 2 dwellings within the area shown on the parameter plan to identify the maximum extent of the proposed development area. The application site is within the settlement limit for Taverham, within an established residential area between a 2-storey house at number 226A and a detached chalet 222A to the east, with detached houses to the rear on Garden Croft. Earlier application to demolish the existing dwelling to erect 3 properties was withdrawn last year. There are no updates to this report. You'll note there's no supplementary schedule for either of the items today. Issues for consideration of whether the principle of the proposal is appropriate with regard to character and appearance of the area, the nearby trees, neighbouring amenities and highway safety. As an outline application, no details have been submitted about the design and scale of the proposed dwellings. However, the parameter plan shows the development envelope, which is primarily the developed part of the plot between the neighbouring properties to each side. Therefore, the position of the proposed dwellings is considered to accord with the established form of properties on this side of Fakenham Road, as the generous open garden frontage has been retained. There's a variety in the height of the dwellings, and the application property is smaller than its neighbours, so there is potential for the heights of the proposed dwelling to be raised and still accord with the general sort of built form of that area. It's considered the site is of sufficient size to accommodate the proposed dwellings, and the proposals could be designed to ensure the dwellings don't look cramped or out of character with the established scale and form of development. A condition is suggested to limit the development to within that part of the site identified on the parameter plan. It's noted that there are large oak trees in the front gardens of the neighbouring properties, which are subject of 2 separate TPOs. The proposed extent of the development area to exclude the root protection area of the nearest oak tree, and although you'll see the council's conservation officer has requested further arboricultural information is submitted, at this stage officers consider that sufficient information has been submitted to enable the outline application with all matters reserved to be determined. A condition requiring the submission of a tree survey, arboricultural constraints plans, arboricultural implications assessment, a tree protection plan and arboricultural method statement are recommended to be imposed, and these will be assessed at the reserved matters stage alongside the position and form of the proposed dwellings. In respect of residential amenities, it's noted concerns have been received from the neighbour to the side at number 226A and the 2 neighbours to the rear about the potential for overlooking from the proposed dwellings and a lack of privacy. As the application is in outline, no details have been submitted to identify the layout of the proposed dwellings or their scale, appearance or window arrangements, and these matters will be considered at the reserved matters stage if outline application is approved. It's noted that the properties to the rear are some 60 metres from the rear wall of the existing chalet at number 224, which is well in excess of the recommended appropriate window-to-window distance in the council's design guide. Number 226A has no first floor windows in its side elevation towards the application site, and is considered that a suitable design for the dwellings could be achieved within the area shown on the parameter plan, and control over these matters exists would be within the reserved matters application, without having a detrimental impact on the residential amenities of neighbours. Turning to highways, it's noted the Highway Authority has not raised an objection and recommends imposition of conditions which is suggested are imposed. In conclusion, in principle, the development is acceptable by virtue of its site being located within the settlement limit, and the 2 dwellings will be sited within that part of the site limited to that shown on the parameter plan, which will safeguard the root protection area of the nearest protected trees and not extend so far down the garden to have an unacceptable impact on neighbours. The layout, scale and appearance of the dwellings and their relationship to the trees still needs to be designed and submitted and considered at the reserved matters stage when issues of the design of the dwellings, their possible impacts on neighbouring properties, the surrounding area and protected trees can all be taken into account. And if not seen to be acceptable, decision could be made at that stage. However, it is considered that sufficient information has been provided for this outline application to approve the principle of 2 dwellings. The recommendation, therefore, is to grant outline approval subject to the conditions set out on page 38 of your agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Officer Rook.
Chairman, may I
And,
just, sorry, Chairman, to be so rude, could I just
Alice.
interject and just to point out for everyone who's with us that Councillor Folger has now joined us. He joined part of the way through that presentation, so I don't think it'd be appropriate for him to take part in this application. Can I just check with Mr. Folger whether he has any declarations of interest to declare at the meeting as well?
You just need to unmute yourself, Councillor Folger.
Yes, no declarations of interest.
Thank you. And just to confirm, Councillor Folger, you won't be able to take part in this application. We have actually changed the order of business, so we're considering application at
number 2 first.
Right, yeah.
At Taver first.
I had an IT problem which has now been resolved.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Chairman.
Thank you. No, thank you for joining us, Councillor Folger. That's absolutely fine. And thank you, Officer Matthews. We will now move to members. Do you have any questions for the officer in relation to that presentation? Councillor Riley? Sorry, we just need to unmute you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Yes, mate. Could you put this, because it's not in the paperwork we've received, the slide of those neighbouring properties where there are two properties, one behind each other further along, is what we've got in our pack is the layout of the properties in a linear form. That'd be handy. I just need to. So it's that slide where you showed
the first one, probably the first one, I think.
Yeah,
Councillor Riley.
right. I think you're right.
That one.
Yes, this
one. So yeah, what I was trying to explain with that, now you've seen the slides, you can obviously see that context again of the application property between its neighbours. So within this group, it's all very linear. There's nothing behind or nothing to the front. But beyond that, beyond the care home, it then becomes much more a situation where you've got frontage properties and properties behind them, as takes place here, as takes place at this one here, where's a driveway running down between these two bungalows. And then that serves another bungalow here, another bungalow there, and a plot going in there. Even beyond that, and not shown on this plan, there's another situation where there's 2 frontage properties and more recently another 2 properties have gone in behind that. So yeah, beyond this group here, really, there is more sort of sporadic development. I think even further up here, not that one, but maybe this one here. I think there's a driveway. You can just see on the corner, there's a driveway that goes up at number 248. I think that is Fakenham Road. And that's got 2 properties behind it there. So yeah, that's why I was trying to make the point that there is situations along Fakenham Road that where plots have been subdivided.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I can't see the screen to see if anyone else has got any questions. Can we just go back, Matthew, please? Okay, anybody else got any questions just at the moment, or can we go to public speaking? Councillor Karimi.
I just wanted to make sure that the root system of those trees will be fully investigated. Because as we heard from a previous application a couple of weeks back, the tree canopy perimeter can be less than actually the root perimeter of the trees.
Yeah, I think what I'm trying to say at this stage is, because it's an outline application with matters reserved, yes, it's saying 2 dwellings, but we're not fixed in relation to where those dwellings, other than being within that parameter plan, exactly where they sit within that parameter plan. And that would be informed by a full submission of arboricultural information about tree roots, construction, same as what we had last time, wasn't it, at Hainford, where we had the whole issues about the foundation details, the canopies, the root protection. That in officer's mind, what we're suggesting is that we've got enough to grant the in principle at this stage, but they would have to submit those details and they would then be assessed by the tree officer at the reserve matters stage. And if it's seen that the dwellings are either too close to the trees or that there's adverse impact on the trees, that would be reflected in the decision on the reserve matters application.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. Any further before we move to public speaking? Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. At this time, we will open our meeting to public speakers. We do not have any representations from the Parish Council. We do, however, have residents who wish to voice their objection to this application. And we will first hear from Dr. Ratton. Dr. Ratton, could you just put your video on, please? Okay, thank you. And you're unmuted. Thank you very much. Dr. Ratton, if I could thank you for attending this morning. And if I could just advise you that you will have 5 minutes to address the committee. Unfortunately, we don't have a clock that we can share the screen with you at the moment, as that would block you out from our members. However, the host at our meeting will advise you when you have 1 minute remaining. Is that acceptable to you?
That's absolutely fine. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could please ask you to introduce yourself, and if you could just advise the committee of the interests that you have in this application, and you will have 5 minutes starting from now.
Thank you. Good morning, all. My name is Dr. Rattan, and I'm speaking on behalf of the owner of 222A Fakenham Road, who is a direct neighbour of number 224, the proposed application site. He submitted a letter but asked me to speak specifically about his real concern that it poses a threat to his family's privacy. The plan submitted are very vague, giving no detail of the exact location of the 2 new double-storey 4-bedroom houses. Due to its long, narrow plot and the distribution of trees with TPOs, it would appear that one of the houses would have to be placed longitudinally on the site. This is a huge concern, as it would result in severe and direct overlooking of the whole of the garden, the glass conservatory and bedrooms at 222A, and indeed number 226A, the other direct neighbour, particularly if it was a 1.5 or 2-storey building. The owner has lived in his property 222A for 17 years very happily, having a good relationship with neighbours and also having seclusion and privacy that he has worked hard to maintain through well-maintained screening methods, hedging, fencing, trees, etc. The beauty of the large garden space and privacy it affords was a key decider in purchasing this property. The second point to note is that all of the plots in this immediate stretch of road are set back with long green open frontages and abundant trees, many of which are protected, as the councillor discussed in the presentation. Now, placing 2 houses on this narrow plot will be out of character and very crowded. Now, I understand that in the presentation, the other area further down the road that was discussed about having more than one property on it. However, the area that the applicant has stated that they will be building the 2 properties, the hatched area, is actually a much smaller area, given the fact that they have to take into account the trees, the TPO orders on the trees. So it's a much smaller area. So we believe that will be very crowded and out of character. And the houses may have to therefore be very small or semi-detached, which again is out of character. Also with regard to the location of houses to be built, the applicant has stated that they would be from the front of the maximum extent built form to the rear development line, the hatched area. So it should be noted that the building drawn on the planning diagram and the one that was discussed in the presentation is not a permanent structure. It was described as a garage building. I would say it's a shed, and it's no taller than the boundary fence. There's also another photo of it attached to the letter from the owner of 226A, which actually makes it clearer what the structure actually is. So essentially, placing a much larger 2-storey house in this area will have a huge impact on privacy. In summary, all families have the right to privacy in their own home. I hope you will seriously consider these very real concerns, as this development has the potential to adversely affect this family's privacy, mental health and well-being significantly. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your time in listening and considering these concerns.
Thank you, Dr. Ratton. Can I ask members, do you have any questions for our public speaker this morning? Councillor Riley?
Yes, Dr. Ratton. Yeah, you just referred to the hatched plan, which we can see, and saying that you made reference to the property having to be longitudinal, going down and overlooking. What indication have you got that it be longitudinal, or is it just simply that the plot is so narrow, that's the presumption?
I think the plot is so narrow and that hatched area is actually quite small. So they'd be right next to each other.
Okay, thank you. It would just be to clarify that it is just a presumption at the moment.
It is, yeah, and also because the plans are vague, we don't really know.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, any further questions, members? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your time, Dr. Ratton. It's very much appreciated. And we will now move on to our second speaker, and we have Leanne Guns. Okay, if I could just ask if we have got Leanne muted. Leanne, if
Hi.
you could please, thank you for joining us this morning, and if you'd be aware of the same as what I've just told Dr. Ratton, that you will have 5 minutes to address the committee. Unfortunately, we don't have a clock that we can show you at the moment, but the host will advise you when you have 1 minute. If I can please ask you to introduce yourself to the committee, please advise the committee of the interest that you have in this application, and you will have 5 minutes starting from now.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for giving me the time to talk today. My name's Leanne Guns. I live in 226A Fakenham Road. I have lived there for approximately 3 years, and I'm also talking on behalf of the owner of the property, who's owned the property for 20 years now. I would just like to reaffirm what Dr. Rattan said previously, that the building which has been referred to as a garage is not in fact what I would describe as a garage at all, but actually a temporary structure, most commonly referred to as a shed, of the level of the fence. Our fence boundary is like a 6-foot fence boundary, and it has been photographed. So this is a similar level to the fence and not actually a permanent structure. So this is quite important when we consider this being replaced with a permanent 2-storey dwelling. Also, as has been mentioned, the site is in fact very narrow, and from a logical point of view, the presumption is that there is no way that you could fit 2 detached 4-bedroom houses next to each other unless they were either very tall and thin or semi-detached or very crowded, which doesn't fit in with the properties in this area. It has been mentioned that there are other properties where dwellings have been built in the gardens and things like that. However, our stretch is very separate to that. The stretch we are referring to, every property has a long front drive with a single house and a long garden. The other properties are separated in quite a way. Like, for example, the care home, which has been mentioned, makes a big break between our linear properties and the ones which have been built in a different fashion. Also, the road has a hill to it, so it's not just the properties in question which breaks it up, but actually the area and the aesthetics of the area is quite different in our specific area with the linear properties. So with that in mind, whilst there are other developed areas close by, these are not in the immediate area, and it's quite a different setup there. I'd also like to mention that we currently use the garden in particular for a large amount of hydrotherapy for my son. My son's got complex needs and a disability, and we have to have a house which enables us to do this with a high degree of privacy. His needs are quite high, and obviously if we had another property, for example, a 4-bedroom, 2-storey detached house looking over the garden, this would make this impossible for us and have a massive impact on his life. He has a long-term disability, registered disabled, etc. So as part of his care plan and as part of his therapy, he has a very strict physiotherapy and hydrotherapy routine, and it's part of the reason we live in the property is because it allows us to do so. We're also not in a position, our needs of the property are so complex actually that we can't just go and move into another property. We can't just find another house which would suit his needs because they are, as I say, quite high needs. It's also, I mean, the other thing is the not just the overlooking, but the blocking out of the sun across our garden is going to be quite severe when there is literally no way that I'm assuming there's no way that they could fit them in the same direction our house faces. One of the houses is going to have to be like, an L shape or something like this, which is going to be either directly looking over or directly blocking out the sun to our property. I think also, whilst it does make sense on other sites that they've been built, this particular area is very busy. It's quite hard when you pull out the driveways, it's quite hard to see oncoming traffic and things like this. So also that needs to be kept into consideration when considering a development which will include more houses and more cars. There's a large number of school children.
1 minute remaining.
Sorry?
1 minute remaining.
Okay, sorry. So I think this also needs to be kept into consideration from a safety point of view. And also the huge amount of wildlife and nature in this area due to the trees. We have a large amount of wildlife. The front of our property is full of like bushes, rhododendron. It's an established wildlife area. So the disruption to this is going to be huge. Thank you.
Apologies. Thank you very much for your time. Okay, members, do you have any questions for Leanne this morning? No? Okay, thank you very much for your time, ladies and gentlemen. We will now move into our formal discussion. And I just have to apologise to everybody. For some reason, I can't stop my eye from watering. I haven't got a serious cold. I just can't stop it from watering. I might have to hand over to the Deputy Chair in a little while if I can't get this fixed. So apologies. Okay, so members, if we could just unmute everybody. And you, before we go any further, can I just ask Officer Rook, if you could please just advise that we are not determining the houses at this moment in time. We don't have any idea of what size, if it's a two-storey, if it's a bungalow, or whatever the houses that will come forward will be.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, you've heard a couple of the speakers both referred to the properties as 4-bed detached houses. That is an assumption that hasn't been submitted as part of the proposals. It's not forming part of your consideration today. Your consideration is the principle of 2 dwellings on this site. The design and the form, the position, all of the issues that you've heard about the scale, windows and overlooking would all be considered as part of the Reserve Matters application, which is still to be submitted. We would then undertake further consultation on the basis of that Reserve Matters application. Neighbours would be given the opportunity to comment on that. Your tree officer would be given opportunity to comment on the tree implications, and we would also have regard to the character and appearance of the area. So these are all things that we would take into account under the Reserve Matters application. Members are being asked to consider the principle of demolition of 1 dwelling and replacing it with 2 within that parameter plan area.
Sure. Hello.
Sorry, Sue, you're muted.
Apologies. I would just wanted to advise the public speakers that I'm really sorry, but you can't speak anymore. You've had your 5 minutes, so it will literally just be discussion amongst the members. And we have Councillor Riley, please.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if I'm going to be a lone voice here today, but I'm actually going to move that we oppose this, and I'll give the reasons for this. When you look at the parish council's reference here to there not enough detail for them to have a proper view. I know usually, and I know Matthew's made reference to this about outline planning, and you know, we give outline planning permission, and the officers do. We're not delegated to us, on delegated authority on numerous occasions. However, I think on this one, I'm seriously concerned about outline on this one because of the lack of detail and the setting as is outlined under NPF, and also the bulk in terms of the plot size, etc. Because this is a setting on its own. When you look at the linear nature of it, they are quite narrow plots. And when I asked to go back onto the slide that Matthew put up, looking at the other properties, I clearly saw from that space in between one property and the property behind it. And then if you look at proportionality on the site, which always gets referred to in officers, and I've heard officers, you know, oppose development on sites because of proportionality within the site. It doesn't sit well within the proportions of the site. I'm actually seeing a difference here. And when the speaker spoke as well, I'm actually picking up on Dr. Ratton's point, and also Leanne Gidders here about the issue of 2 dwellings. We could be 4 bedrooms, 2 stories, might be semi-detached, might be detached, might be, we don't know. We don't know, this presumption. And right now I'm sitting here unable to actually have a clear presumption about what this is going to be. And I think on this one, I don't think we should go ahead with outline planning permission on this. I think that really on this one, what I'd look to see is an application come in with detail on it, on a detailed application before you go to outline. And that is possible. We could do that because I think that there are issues here on this particular site and its setting. And on that basis, as I said, it might be a lone voice here, but I'm proposing that we oppose this.
Okay, thank you. And I will just ask Officer Mellors, Councillor Karimi. But actually, Councillor Karimi, do you mind if Officer Mellors just
No, of course not.
replies to that?
I think we can't refuse. I'll just give sort of the outlined sort of considerations. You can refuse it on you don't think the site can accommodate 2 dwellings, but you can't refuse it on lack of details, because the whole point of the outline is actually they're demonstrating that that they can accommodate 2 dwellings on the site. They don't have to put the details. What we're saying as officers, with the appropriate design and scale, 2 two-storey dwellings within that perimeter area, which would still be a linear development, is acceptable as a principle, because we have total control of the reserved matters for that final design, scale design, overlooking to be considered. So you can't refuse an application on an outline to say lack of detail. What you have to refuse it on it is saying you don't think the site can accommodate 2 dwellings. It's a slightly different interpretation. But in officer's opinion, there's nothing to say that you cannot accommodate 2 modest 2-storey or even 1.5-storey dwellings on the site within that outline perimeter plan.
And just to say as well, that the committee will determine what houses would go on there. Councillor Riley.
Yeah, once outline planning permission has been given for 2, there will be 2. We've had this before on outline. Once you've agreed the outline, we had at last planning meeting actually, there'll be 2. It will just be what type. The issue here is that I agree, Helen, that you know, under the NPF we could actually refuse this on the basis of outline, because 2 dwellings in this narrow plot. And I have to say, without the detail there, but without that, we could actually say we are of concern that this does not fit with NPPF and the GDP in terms of the setting and bulk within the site. We could actually make that quite clear in terms of the outline.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go to Councillor Karimi Kuvalu, please.
Hi. I am slightly concerned at the proposal of building 2 houses on this plot. If you look at the plots, if we could possibly go to the overview that Matthew had, showing like a bird's eye view of the plot. Is that possible?
Yeah, I just need to log in, sorry.
Did you want to continue whilst Matthew's logging in, Caroline?
Yeah, okay. If you look at from the overview, the plots both sides have houses on them.
Can you see that? Is that okay?
There's a closer view, isn't there?
Yeah, let me just see. So if I go through, if you tell me when, oh, not that way.
That one. No, go back.
Yep.
Go back. Yeah.
That one.
I mean, if you're looking at 226A and 222A Fakenham Road, they are both single houses on that narrow plot. If you're going to build 2 houses on that attached area, that's going to be very cramped, I think. And at the parish council meeting, I do remember them saying that the application was for 2 4-bedroom properties. I do not know where they got that from, but that is stated in their consultation on 4.1. So I am slightly concerned that the plot is going to be too small for 2 large properties there. And also, can I say that the other ones further down the road, that they are long gardens or whatever, but they are wider than this property here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. We'll go back to full screen, please. And I have Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I agree with Steve on this one entirely. I've looked at Bob, and I'm the local councillor, district councillor. It is very narrow, and I just like to say that I always was under the impression, unless things have changed, is that we're just looking at this particular application, not what might have been approved or not approved on other applications. Is that still the case, Matthew? Should be, strictly speaking, not be referring to other things that have happened?
There's material considerations as to the, if we take an account of the character and appearance of the area. The reason I wanted to show that slide was to give members an appreciation of the character and appearance of the area. I think what I'm saying is that.
But Matthew, with the greatest respect, it didn't, did it? It just showed the application site.
Okay.
You didn't take pictures of the application sites which have already got the development, so we can't compare like with like. We should really just be constant. But anyway, I'll leave that one. But and I do know, and Helen knows, because Caroline and I have taken this up about the lack of detail for the parish council to consider, because they said they couldn't make a decision because there wasn't any sufficient details. Caroline and I both agreed and took it up with Helen, and Helen well knows. But my view is the same. It will not accommodate two properties, in my view, even with the demolition of the existing one. And for that reason, I believe it is contrary to policy, and in particular that it won't enhance the character and appearance of an area which is under design. It doesn't reinforce local distinctiveness through careful consideration of the treatment of space throughout the development. Because it is so cramped, I don't think that meets GC4 design 2. It also has, we've heard, have a considerable impact on the amenity of the existing property and being accessible to all. Well, no, that one doesn't count. Also, of course, there are MPPF on page 38 as well, which backs this up. And once you've given planning permission for this, yes, you can try and sort it out at outline permission, but the permission is there. So two properties of whatever are going on that site. And I think what the committee members should be considering is looking at it and seeing the narrowness of that plot. Do you honestly believe that you can achieve two good quality properties with proper distinctiveness, which will add to the character and appearance of the surrounding area by giving permission? Because once you've given permission, that's it. It's finished, it's done, and all you'll be considering is the outline planning permission. And that once you've given permission for two properties will go on there, no matter what the outline comes up with. At the end of the day, so I will second Steve's proposal that we say that this cannot possibly accommodate two properties on this site, and I will back Steve to say that we should be looking at reducing this one. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman. I hear what's been said by the local residents and by the other couple of councillors have just opposing this. I think it's strange that we think we can be architects and decide ahead of what an architect can actually put on this particular site. And I believe there's quite okay within the parameters, the site parameters identified by the officer. And to my knowledge, the officers may correct me, but there's been nothing said about 4-bedroom dwellings. All we're looking at is that particular parameter site and plan to say whether there can be 2 dwellings outlined. That will come back for detailed permission, and I see no reason at all to have at this stage to reject it. It is a big site. There's plenty of site left for amenity areas after the building within the parameter plan. So I certainly can't support the proposal by Councillor Riley and Adams to reject this. In fact, I'd be inclined to go along with the officers and support this recommendation by the officers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pratton.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Could Officer Rook kindly go back to that same picture that you were showing a moment or two ago? I would be very grateful if you would plop your cursor on what is deemed to be the garage stroke shed, which is the extent of the development that we're talking about. It is that little
one there. Let me see if I can I go in a bit more? Yeah,
yes.
there.
So the area will, if it goes ahead and
No
this
further
development
than
is allowed,
further than that.
No further than that. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
and
Thank you
coming
for the
into that area,
clarification. I
coming
thought
into
that
that
that was
area to the
so.
front. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Karimi?
What I was trying to point out with that one is you've got two big houses either side, and that bungalow takes up the whole width of that plot. I can't see how you're going to get two houses on that plot unless you turn it the other way around.
Okay.
And with response to Councillor Fisher, I do have a qualification in architecture, so I think I do know what I'm talking about here.
I'm surprised you can't see how you get two plots in there then.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to Councillor Ward, please.
Well, you probably could get two if they were about a foot apart.
Yeah.
But I don't see there's any way you could get two decent detached houses on that plot. You might be able to get some a couple of semis on there, but that would be out of character with the area. So
definitely, yeah.
I'm not happy with this at all, and I won't be voting in favour of it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Catchpole.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, being a bit less experienced than most of the other people on this committee, I'm wondering if there are any restrictions on if an outline planning permission is granted. Are there any restrictions on what kind of building or dwelling can be built? So can it be a one-bedroom bungalow, or you know, is there any kind of restriction apart from the planning?
Officer Rook.
Do you want me to come back on that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, as far as that goes, you can see the conditions that we're suggesting on page 38 of your agenda. We haven't specified a condition in respect of the, what should we say, the height, so the scale of the buildings. I have seen elsewhere in the country where that has been imposed, but an inspector has overruled that because he said that the authority has control over that at the reserve matters stage. So he didn't consider that condition was necessary. And it's that for that reason, we're not imposing conditions to say that these can only be single story or can only be 2-3 bedroom houses, because as Helen said, we have total control over the design and form of those properties going forward under the reserve matters application.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any further comments? The only thing that I would say is that I'm not an architect, but I do understand that sometimes that we can look at sites and think, how on earth can you get a housing estate on there? And it happens. So in my opinion, it is possible to get two houses on that side. We're not discussing the size of the houses are going to be. And I totally understand what Councillor Riley is saying, that if we agree that there's two houses on there, then two houses will come forward. But it doesn't mean to say that they're going to be 4 bedroom detached houses. It doesn't have to be that way. We determine what is going to happen on that site as a committee. So we can't be seen to be presuming anything. We can only deal, as Councillor Adams said, we can only deal with what's in front of us at the moment. And at the moment, officers are saying that it is possible to have two houses on there. And again, if you look at the site where the house is at the moment, if you were to move the house that's there now, and again, this is just presuming, and this is not advising anybody to do anything. If you look at it, you move the house back, and then you have one coming so that it's in an L shape. It is possible to get two houses on there. and it is possible. It doesn't have to be 2 stories, as far Helen or Officer Mellors will confirm for me that it doesn't have to be 2 stories. It could be a bungalow, it could be 1.5, it could be whatever the committee determined that it can be. But I totally understand that you've all got your opinions and you've got your mindset. I think, Helen, would you like to just address the committee any further before we go to the vote, please?
I think, you know, it is always difficult, I think, to sometimes appreciate that an outline application does have little detail with it. But what we're saying is the size of the plot, in our opinion, can accommodate 2 dwellings. That could be a pair of semi-detached. It could be orientated to create 2 detached dwellings due to the size that does come forward. What we're saying is that can be accommodated without having any undue impact on the character of the area, subject to the design, and on the amenity of the neighbours. Because a semi-detached pair of dwellings wouldn't look that much out keeping than a large detached property within the street scene. So that's the reason why we're saying the site can accommodate 2 dwellings coming forward. So that's our position on the site. So you're correct that we do have that total control coming forward, and we're not being prescriptive on exactly how that has to come forward, because clearly that's going to be informed by making sure all those parameters that we're setting, the trees, the impact and amenity, all needs to be addressed in that design.
Okay. Anybody got anything they'd like to say? Councillor Brennan?
Yeah.
I'll come back to Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. What guarantee have we got that if we grant outline for 2 dwellings today, that the full planning permission will come to committee? Because
that would be for a member call in. So at the moment, the only reason it's in at the moment is not because of a member call in. It's because the applicant is known to an employee. So that's the only reason it's been referred to committee. For this reason, a local member can call an application in. So clearly that is in the gift of the local members to call the application. If the application is still in the ownership of the same applicant and that member of staff is still in the council, then it would automatically have to come back in any event.
Yeah. Are we, if we grant outline for 2 dwellings today, again, also Helen, please, does that not create some considerable leverage to approval later?
We're giving the principle for 2 dwellings, but we have control over what that looks like, the design, how it impacts on the neighbouring amenities. They're all the criteria that we would have to assess as part of those reserved matters. We do refuse reserved matters if they're not in keeping or character, or there's unacceptable impact because of overlooking. It doesn't mean you automatically get reserved matters, and they can be refused if they don't meet all our other policies relating to those issues. So we still have total control over what the design looks like in a reserved matters. It's just the principle we're saying, with the information that's come forward, which is enough for us to consider, you could accommodate 2 dwellings on the site.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wright. Okay, thank you, Councillor Brennan. Councillor Riley?
Thank you. Yeah, just some clarity on basically as well what the point that Nigel was making here. Once we get, and this is the point that I was making, and also Councillor Adams as well, once you give outline planning permission, you've given it. That is it. They will then have permission for 2 properties. The issue that will go back to the officer under delegated authority will be, do the 2 properties comply with the outline? What is the outline? Go to the hatched area from the back of the hatch line to the front of the hatch line. We'll be giving permission for 2 properties from the start of that hatch line to the back of that hatch line, and also as far over as one could get with a drive. That is what you'll be, there's no presumption around that. That is what we'll be doing. In terms of the height, the officer's already made reference as well to 2 neighbouring properties' ridge height. So what we'd also be doing in that, and you know this is what would happen, under the current regs where we are in terms of ridge height with the other 2 properties as well, that could go up to the same ridge height. So the design on that, yes, by the officer can be looked at, but be under no illusion that we'll be given permission for 2 properties sideways down, side by side, to allow a drive, and from the back of that hatch to the front of that hatch. That is what we're given permission for. and I don't believe it's within the setting. I don't believe it fits with this location.
Okay. Apologies. Okay, that's Councillor Karimi.
Yeah, I just want to agree with Steve there, because if you're going to have two properties there as the same perspective as that property there, I would think it would be out of character of the whole setting, because all those houses along there are quite substantial houses. To have two semi-detached houses in that way round on that property would be completely out of character to the existing properties around there that have to be going the other way.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Leah, has anybody said they'd like to speak? I haven't noticed. Councillor Brennan?
Yeah, sorry.
And then we will go to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick point. So is this to actually build two dwellings within the ownership of the current owner, or is this actually going to be a subdivision into two plots?
The permission goes with the land, so it doesn't go with a person. So if we give outline consent, you're allowing anybody who is then the landowner or gets the permission of the landowner to put an application in for reserved matters for the erection of two dwellings, subject to it being acceptable in all those criteria. So permission goes with the land.
Yeah, so yeah, sorry, Helen, but is it going to be subdivided, or is it going to be two properties within?
No, because it's the
Sorry, Helen, you've gone off.
Sorry, I'm back on again. Sorry, it's the demolition of the existing property and erection of two.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So can we just be clear on what we've had a proposal that by Councillor Riley and seconded by Councillor Adams that we should refuse the officer's recommendation, but we just need clarification. Have you got clarification, Dawn and Helen, on what we're refusing it for?
I think the clarification that I've heard, and that the one that I would put forward, would be the construction of two dwellings out as proposed on this narrow plot would be out of keeping in character.
Okay. Happy with that, Councillor Riley, Councillor Adams?
Yeah.
There are other policies. There are other policies as
oh
well.
yeah, contrary to policy,
But
yeah, we would put the
that would be-
policies in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's what you're saying.
Thank you,
Okay,
Helen.
wonderful. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, members, we have we've had it proposed by Councillor Riley and seconded by Councillor Adams that we should refuse to approve outline planning permission subject to the conditions as stated on page 38 of your papers. Okay, Councillor Officer Matthews, I keep making you a councillor. Officer Matthews, if I could please ask you to do a roll call and to do a vote on the recommendation, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So just to clarify, you're telling me whether you're for or against the proposal. Sorry. Councillor Catchpole, did you want to...
sorry, it's proposal
for the proposal for refusal. Yep.
I think we need to make that really clear because it's quite conflicting.
I just wanted to Catchpole, I think, wanted to say before I...
Sorry, Councillor Catchpole.
Do we not hear from the applicant?
No, there's nobody here.
Oh, fine. Okay.
No, we didn't have any members from the parish council, nor did we have any members any members of the public who wanted to speak for the application, which is very unusual, but there we are. Okay, Officer Matthews.
So I'm going to just re-emphasise that again, Chairman, that we are now voting on the proposal by Mr Riley, seconded by Mr Adams, that the application be refused. So yes. Could you tell me if you are for or against refusal? So that's Councillor Adams.
For.
Councillor Brennan.
For.
Councillor Catchpole.
For.
Councillor Fisher.
Against.
Councillor Karimi Guvenlou.
For.
Councillor Lawn.
Against.
Councillor Prutton.
For.
Councillor Riley.
For.
And Councillor Ward.
For.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 7 members voting for and 2 against, Chairman.
Okay,
that proposal for refusal is carried.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Leanne, for your time this morning, and the officers will take that forward. We will now move on to our second application, which was our first application on the agenda. And this is application number 2020-1650 Royal Oak, North Walsham, Sprouston. And Matthew, if I could, we don't have any public speakers on this, so we don't need to check that anybody is here. And Matthew, if I can leave it with you to take the presentation, please.
Yes, Chair. We can find that in front of me. Here we go. Royal Oak, North Walsham Road, Sprowston. So this is a full application for demolition of the existing buildings and erection of 8 dwellings and garages. Take you through the slides. Application site is this building, or these collection of buildings here, North Walsham Road, running north-south on your plan here. You can see the buildings themselves, an area of car parking to the north. If we move in a little bit closer, start to see that in the context of the site and its surroundings. So this is the former Royal Oak Public House at the front of the site here, and I think there was an extension to that. Subsequent to that, a building has gone in at the rear of the site here, sort of a warehouse building, because when the Royal Oak closed, sort of an office supplies company moved in and utilised that building as sort of a warehouse, or sort of a repair area for some of their office supplies. You can then see the context of the site, neighbouring properties. This is a detached house at number 120 North Walsham Road. This is a block of 8 flats, I think it is, at Royal Oak Court, with parking to the front and parking area to the rear. Detached bungalows opposite the site, and then on Colin Deep Lane, combination of bungalows and chalets which are accessed here and have these are the properties and their rear gardens obviously bound the rear part of the application site. Just some aerial views of that, so you can see the context of the site within its surroundings. And then these are the proposed layout plans. So as I've said, proposal to demolish all of the buildings on the site and build 2 pairs of semi-detached houses at the front of the site. They then have their parking area, so that's plots 1, 2, 3 and 4. Plots 1 and 2 have their double parking situation to the rear, and then parking 4 spaces is provided here for numbers 3 and 4. Private drive then provides access to a detached house on that part of the site adjacent to the Royal Oak Court. So that's a 2-storey house in that position with 2 parking spaces to the front. Continuing further along, we've then got numbers 6 and 8, which are detached chalets, and they also have parking there and there. And then number 7 is a bungalow, and that has a double garage and parking in that position there. Trees on the site, there are some interspersed existing trees, which are the lighter green colours around the boundaries. It's proposed to supplement those with additional planting in the darker green colours that you can see there. So views of the proposals, take this bottom one first of all. So this is the view of the 2 pairs of semi-detached properties on the road frontage. So this will be the view from North Walsham Road, looking at the semi-detached properties. The driveway then runs down between the end property here and the detached house at plot 5. And you can see the context of design of plot 5 relative to the hipped roof Royal Oak Court, which I've got some photographs I'll show you shortly. And then looking into the site, so then again, getting your context, this is North Walsham Road, so we've come into the driveway, and then that is number, I think that's plot 6. Let me just get my plan in front of me, sorry. Here we go. Yeah, so that's plot 6, which is the chalet. Plot 7, which is the bungalow at the far corner of the site. And then just looking in the opposite direction, so also coming down the driveway, looking to the north, plot 5, Royal Oak Court, the flats behind it, and then the chalet in the other corner of the site. So it gives you a bit of a street view context of how the properties will relate one to another. Floor plans and elevations of the semi-detached houses. So these are each 3-bedroom properties, designed with a little loo at the front, so you've got a little projecting gable to the front of the property. They're designed identically, but will be picked up in different materials. So I think plots 1 and 2 are intended to be in a brick. 3 and 4 would be a render. And then moving through the site. So this is then plot 5, front view of plot 5, detached house with a projecting gable to the front. Again, 3-bedroom. Plot 6. one of the chalets. This is the front of plot 6, roof light and a dormer window. On the rear elevation, there are 2 dormer windows, which are 2 roof lights, sorry, these 2 roof lights here, one serving a landing, one serving an ensuite, which are shown here and here. And it's intended that we'll condition those to be obscure glazed. Plot 7 is the bungalow. So we can see that that is a 1, 2, 3 bedroom property. Obviously no openings in the roof space of that particular property. And then plot 8, the one in the other corner, again is a chalet with roof lights this time, no dormer windows on that particular property. Photographs of the site. So this is stood at the sort of the access looking down into the rear of the site. So plot 5 would be in about this position here. Plot 6, 7 and 8 would be there. And plots 1 to 4 would be across the road frontage where the semi-detached properties would be located. This is then views from within the site. So that's Royal Oak Court, which is accessed from a position about here. And just views of the context of the site itself. And then from within the site, so this is the neighbouring property. This one here is number 120, which is just to the southern boundary of the site. You can see the context of that particular property. And then just looking across the frontage of this, the former pub. You'll note the parish or town council have asked for the old pub sign to be retained or to be removed but relocated in an appropriate location, and we're looking to include that within the landscaping condition to ensure that that is retained elsewhere within the site. And then that's the views opposite. Final slide. So to the report, as I said, full application for the demolition of the pub and buildings to the rear. Application is brought before committee for determination as the proposed redevelopment of the site would result in the loss of an existing employment site. The site is within the settlement limit. It's amongst a variety of different house types, including detached bungalows, chalets, houses, and the 2-storey block of flats to the north. Although the site's last use was as an employment use, this site has not been allocated for employment purposes. Therefore, a residential redevelopment is acceptable in principle. There are no updates to the report. Issues for consideration are the design of the proposals, upon the character and appearance of the area, impact on neighbour amenities, on highway safety, and including the car parking. Dwellings have been designed so the 2-storey semi-detached houses on plots 1 to 4 and the detached house on plot 5 are located towards the front of the site between 2-storey neighbours at number 120 North Walsham Road and the flats at the Royal Oak Court, with detached chalets on plot 6 and 8 and a detached bungalow on plot 7 located to the rear of the site to reflect the neighbouring chalets and bungalows to the rear on Collindeep Lane, these areas here. So consider that these have more of a relationship to the 1-storey or the chalet properties at the rear of the site, whereas the 2-storey elements pick up on the form and character of the 2-storey development to the front of the site. This enables the development to successfully relate to its surroundings. It's noted the dwellings would be accessed via a private drive. However, a private drive exists to the north here into the parking area of the Royal Court. So it's not considered that that was an acceptable form of development. Furthermore, the scale and form of the proposed dwellings are considered to accord with the local mixed residential character, and it's considered the scale, design and form of development is appropriate to the character appearance of the area. In terms of impact on residential amenities and future occupiers of the development, it's noted that the scale of the proposed dwellings have been matched to the neighbouring properties, which assists with safeguarding the amenities of those neighbours. Care has been taken to ensure that outlook from neighbours is not compromised and that the proposed dwellings don't have windows which will be conditioned to ensure they're fitted with obscure glass or permitted development rights removed to prevent additional openings in the roof space towards a neighbour. Proposals therefore have no unacceptable impact on amenities of neighbours or the future occupiers. Turning to highways matters, Highway Authority has raised no objection to the revised plan, which shows each dwelling now has 2 parking spaces, which for the size of the proposed dwelling meets the council's parking standards. The proposed vehicular access is in the same position as the existing access, and no objection has been raised in this respect. Conditions are requested, and these are suggested, these are imposed. Given the scale of the development, there's no requirement for affordable housing to be provided, but there is a requirement to meet council's policies in respect of formal recreation and green infrastructure provisions, as there is not space on the site for these to be provided. A commuted payment will need to be secured via a Section 106 agreement. Finally, it's noted the proposal will result in the loss of an employment site, and policy E2 of the DMDPD requires that in settlement limits, that's an employment use will be retained unless it can be demonstrated that it is not viable or there is a significant environmental or community gain from redevelopment which outweighs the employment benefits. The report sets out that the office supplies business moved out in November 2019 and marketing of the building for rent commenced in December 2019. There was some early interest from a local company, although this fell through in March due to COVID-19. Marketing then recommenced in April 2020 through a recognised local agent and across its internet network, and that continued for 8 months. The agent has confirmed that during this period there was only limited interest, and that was for part of the property to be let, and that with the onset of COVID-19 and numerous lockdowns, there is considerable turmoil in the office and commercial market, and in his view, it's unlikely there will be interest for the foreseeable future. It is considered that on balance, the combined marketing exercises have evidence there is not a demand to let the buildings for a commercial use, and that a residential redevelopment is more compatible with its surroundings than the existing commercial activities. On balance, it's considered the proposed redevelopment represents an acceptable form of development, and the recommendation to grant delegated authority to the Director of Place to approve the application, subject to the satisfactory completion of a Section 106 legal agreement and subject to the conditions set out on pages 24 to 25 of your agenda. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Officer. Okay, members, do you have any questions in relation to, if I just advise you actually, we don't have any public speakers from the parish. We don't have any public speakers speaking against it or for the application. So we will move to our open discussion. And I have Councillor Ward. I've got you all. I've got Councillor Ward, please.
Hello. Yes, question from Matthew. Parking spaces, the 4 3-bedroom semis, I thought they'd only got 1 each. You said all the properties have got 2. Can you show me where those, is that right? They have got 2, and where are they, please?
Yeah. So, yeah, these are, you see all the plot numbers there, numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
So 3, if I zoom in a little bit, that might help. Oh, can you see that? So there's 2 parking spaces there with number 3 on them. 2 parking spaces there for number 4. And then these ones here are what's called sort of tandem spaces.
Yeah.
So that's a double length space.
Yeah.
Double length space for number 1 and a double length space for number 2. So each one of these 4 properties has each got 2 parking spaces.
So in total, we've got 16 parking spaces on the site. 16
parking spaces for 8 properties.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
The thing to note, and I didn't mention it in the, I think it's in the report, I didn't mention it in my presentation, plot 6 has got 1 parking space in front of the garage. This garage is a larger garage. So it's one of those garages that is 3 meters wide by 7 meters deep. So that the Highway Authority have identified that as a parking space. And we are suggesting a condition to take away permitted development rights to ensure that that's not converted at a later date. So that is retained as 2 parking spaces for plot number 6. So on that basis, yeah, there are 16 spaces for 8 properties.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I know I've got quite a few of you who want to speak. So Councillor Karimi.
Mine was about the parking and Matthew's just explained that.
Okay, Councillor Riley. Thank you. Councillor Riley.
Yes, just confirming, and this goes back to the planning application at our last meeting, which is referenced in the minutes, where we had an exception to the policy of a year, and that was outlined in the minutes. I saw that, I was happy about that, where we've made an exception because of the circumstances there of less than a year. This one, Matthew, from what you've just said, I believe is actually fully contained within our policy of the year from the November period of 19.
It's over 2 separate periods of 4 months and 8 months.
Okie dokie. So we've basically got that period covered within the existing policy rather than an exception. So thank you, Matthew.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brennan?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, could I ask Matthew, could you go to your slide number 6, I think it is, with the views looking north, south, etc.
On the photographs, let's have a look.
No, the actual, no, sorry, slide 6.
Okay, let me get it. This one.
That's the one. Yeah, view looking south. Can you tell me what that dotted line is at the end of the property on
Here?
Yeah.
That'll be the garage.
Ah, right. Okay, then.
So they've obviously shown that as dotted so you can see the property behind it, but that's
that's fine.
The garage that sits sort of in the foreground, if you see what I mean.
No, that's fine. Yeah, thanks, Matthew. Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
And Councillor Fisher, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I do.
Councillor Fisher?
Nothing.
No?
I wish to at all. I support the recommendation. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Fulcher, did you just say you wanted something to say?
Yes. In the absence of any interest in using this as an employment site, I think the proposal has merit in view of the requirement for housing in the area, and I think it is quite well designed in there and would fit into the overall area. And in those circumstances, I would propose that we accept and support the officer's recommendation.
I would second that, Chair, as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then I'll go to, apologies, Councillor Prutton, please.
Just a query. Item 5.27, Sproston Town Council has commented they'd like the existing Royal Oak pub sign to be retained, and this is going to be part of the condition. Who then takes on responsibility for its maintenance? Does it go to the Town Council? Have they indicated they will continue to maintain it, or what happens then?
Not as far as I know. No, I think what we're looking at is that it's put into, what am I thinking is that it would be probably appropriate to locate it. I'll get my slides the right way around. Probably in this frontage. I think it probably sits about here at the moment. Doesn't really want to be at the back of the site because obviously it won't have any benefit to anyone coming past, but there's a little bin store that's proposed in that position there, and I think it'd probably be appropriate to locate it in that position there. It will be part of the landscaping. We've conditioned that it's included as part of the landscaping scheme. It would be then down to whoever is maintaining this part of the site. It's usually that it goes with one of the properties. So I'd imagine it would have to all be within the ownership and responsibility of one of the plots. Plot 5, I would estimate, but that's only we haven't had any information. That's where I see it. It's be there or over here. But given the trees that exist in this corner, it makes more sense for it to be located in that position there.
So when the paint starts to peel off, they'll have to have a quick whip round. Yes.
Potentially, yes.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Chair.
Councillor Adams, did you say you wanted something?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay,
surprisingly not.
Apologies. Everybody's hands all came up at once and I lost who was who. Okay, well, I think
yes,
we've
please,
covered
Chair.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Councillor Catchpole. I'm so sorry. You please go
Thank
ahead.
you. Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about the proximity of house number one, to the neighbour. And are there any windows that currently look from the neighbour over that site? Because we did see a photo of it, and I thought maybe there were.
I'll put the slide on, shall I?
Thank you.
Yes, please.
So you're talking about this property here, number one, and its relationship to the property here at number 120 North Walsham Road. I think there is a photograph of that further on in the. Well, first of all, let me have a look. Oh, sorry. I wanted to just have a look to see the relationship. So there is no windows on the end gable of number one. So that's a blank gable. And then on the photographs, my recollection is that there's a blank there. So there's certainly nothing at first floor. That's number 120 there. So they haven't got any first floor windows, and the intention is that this hedge is retained. So any ground floor windows, which you can't see here, will be safeguarded anyway. But we've got a blank gable at plot number 1.
Okay,
I don't anticipate any overlooking issues there.
No, it just seems that they've squashed 1 and 2 as semis towards that property rather than perhaps have them as one terrace of 4, and then there could be some more space down the side there, but that's just my
partly to allow this access between the plots, really. Obviously we've got all these bin stores, so they need to get their bins out.
Right.
So yeah, it's one of those you tend to see that you have a little passageway between properties to allow rear access in to the properties, and then take the bins to the bin store in this position here, and obviously wheel them back again into their properties.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions before we go to the vote? Okay, thank you. Okay, it's been proposed by Councillor Fulcher and seconded by Councillor Riley that we should, as a committee, agree to the officer's recommendation to delegate authority to Director of Place to approve this application, subject to conditions as set out on page 24 and 25, and a successful completion of a Section 106 agreement with the following heads of terms, again, as stated on page 24 of your papers. Okay, Officer Matthews, if I could ask you please to go to the roll call and to have the vote on this application, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So if members could indicate if they are for or against the proposal to approve the application. So Councillor Adams?
For.
Councillor Brennan?
For.
Councillor Catchpole?
For.
Councillor Fisher?
For.
Councillor Folger?
For.
Councillor Karimi Guvenlu?
For.
Councillor Lawn?
For.
Councillor Prutton?
For.
Councillor Riley?
For.
And Councillor Ward?
For.
That's carried unanimously, Chairman.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that brings our applications to a close. We just will move on to item number 6 on the agenda, the planning appeals for information. And Officer Rook, if I can leave that with you.
Yep, I'll take you through those. So yeah, you can see we've not had any appeal decisions, but that's partly because of the short period of time between the last committee and this one. We're only looking between the 19th of November and the 7th of December. So no appeal decisions received, but we have had 3 appeals lodged. Members might recognise the first one there, Adam and Eve House, which was one that was reported to committee in September for a dwelling, a Para 79 dwelling. And that one, as I said, the appeal is in, so we'll await the decision on that one. Second one on the list is a garage to the front of a property in Sproulston. It was a delegated decision, delegated refusal. And then lastly, an outline application for 9 self-build dwellings in Coltershall on Rectory Road. That site was outside the settlement limit. There was a view of officers that the proposal would encroach into the open countryside, causing harm to the rural appearance. An earlier concern from the Highway Authority was resolved through negotiation. So the reasons for refusal were its context outside the settlement limit and the impact on the rural character of the area. And we'll await, obviously, the inspector's views on all 3 of those.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from any members? Okay, no, thank you very much. Okay, that brings, that now completes the business of the committee for this morning. And I would just like to take this